Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks.
Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try to make your world a little weirder. I'm Niall.
And I'm Kyle, brother of Niall in this death cult.
In this journey through the cosmos that somehow turned into the death cult. We're back for episode 2 of our Saturn myth into Saturn Death Cult short two-parter. I almost said miniseries, but I don't think 2 episodes really equates to miniseries. I guess if we were to lump in the Electric Universe, then that's like a BBC miniseries, or 3 like episodes.
Exactly. I was just about to say that's something that you get on like some sort of like British, prestige thing. So when we do make our move to the BBC, which we inevitably will do at some point, we can start doing like 2-parter, 3-parter miniseries.
Well, so far we only have gotten offers on like BBC 4, and hey, we need to at least be on like News. BBC 2 or something before we really say okay to that offer. Last time we had the Mountain Dew pitch, the Game Fuel pitch. Sorry, I shouldn't have said the MD. The Game Fuel pitch is still in play, so you'll see we might have some branded content here between the BBC and Game Fuel.
Yeah, a lot of synergy between Game Fuel, the BBC, and It Gets Weird going on. Niall, do you want to bring us into this part 2 of the Saturn mythos, Saturn Death Cult story?
Okay, so the things to just briefly get everyone back up to speed, because these episodes, I'm assuming not everyone's going back and re-listening to episode 1 before they start this one. We're mainly talking about the works of a guy named Troy D. McLaughlin, who wrote the book The Saturn Death Cult, along with co-writing a book called Cosmic Cataclysm. In the first episode, we started with kind of the purple dawn of creation, back when Saturn had Mars and Earth, and in some versions one other planet in its heliosphere or plasma sheath, whatever you want to call it, because in the Electric Universe everything is tied together in the cosmos by plasma, not by gravity or by mass-based things,
right? Because plasma is an electricity thing. So this particular version of reality that they are postulating, everything is made of electricity. All forces in nature.
Yep. And so Saturn we're kind of our own thing in a polar configuration where it was just we're all stacked on top of each other. And because of that and all the things, Saturn was a brown dwarf star. We now have this kind of purple hue radiation over the Earth, which is and because of everything, we have a lower gravity, we have megafauna, megaflora, maybe or maybe not dinosaurs and people. I still am a little unclear on that. And over time, as the corkscrew pattern of the orbit of this whole conglomeration of planets goes through space, it starts to skirt into the heliosphere of the sun, and we start to get some cataclysmic events and the rearranging of the solar system now with these 3 new bodies. We burst Venus out of the fallout of Saturn. We started to have various religious groups and priests that were basically transcribing the heavens into the mythologies of ancient civilizations. So you had the battles of like Mars and Venus. You have the coming of Jupiter. You have all of these things centered around Saturn as kind of a and the higher god in the cosmos. And then towards the end of the last episode, we got into more of the like the rise of commerce in humanity, and how going from a straight up money as a straight debt token for like products that you have, like crops that you already have in a silo, into a gold standard, and various mismatched standards across different nations led to the Tower of Babylon, metaphorically, and the fall of that. And at the very end of the last episode, the Tower of Babel collapsed, and complacency regarding the movements of the planet started setting in. And basically, all of the because the planets stopped fucking with Earth on a regular basis, mankind got ennui and said, "Fuck God."
Yeah. So,
and that's where we ended.
Hope y'all got all that. Which, if technically, this is actually a 3-parter, because a few episodes back you did the electric universe theory, which is just foundational to all of this. And I can't believe that there's this much surrounding the idea that the universe is made of electricity, which is like, it seems, it seems innocuous enough, right, to believe that, but like, I guess when you start questioning just like fundamental science and like expert like science on this stuff, then it tends to go down this weird path where you end up in a New World Order culty dark government conspiracy.
Yeah, and like I promised last time, this episode is going to be much more straight up like conspiracy, whereas last time it was alternate cosmological, I guess, science. So this is where we get into the Saturn Death Cult. We're going to get the seeds of that here very shortly. But we left off, we had the Blue Bloods kind of in power, having and Blue Bloods being effectively the priests, the priest kings that were around. So that includes people like Nimrod and various other people. And we were entering the Bronze Age of man, which is not the same as the historical Bronze Age. This is the mythological Bronze Age. So just to make it even more confusing, we're going to use the same terms as history, but use them differently. All right. So because we have separated ourselves from just our religion, from just tracking the cosmos, we now have the rise of what this mythology calls demigods. And what they mean by that are humans that are seen to in the same way as gods. So we start seeing like human beings that, due to their power and stuff on Earth, are held in reverence like we would have gods in the previous era. And one of these will eventually be Jesus Christ.
I knew you were going to say
there
that
in just a little bit.
I knew you were going to say that. So we're still, well before Jesus at this point. Like, are you like, would you say that this, if we can pinpoint in history when the Tower of Babylon would have happened, or the Tower of Babel, like, is that a thing that, like, do you know, like, when that would quote unquote exist in history? Okay, no,
it is ancient times,
right?
It is well into the BCs.
Okay.
And the next kind of waypoint we get in terms of history is the poppy trade of Sodom and Gomorrah. So we're getting into some more biblical stuff here, and like I said last time, when commerce came to be, and when these people started to accumulate power through hoarding wealth and through controlling wealth, there started to be these kind of vice trades, and one of which was poppy. And the main place that this happened, like the biggest provider of poppy, and I think that gets turned into heroin, I believe, or just opium, or is that opium?
I believe it's opium. If you recall the Seinfeld episode in which I believe Jerry It's Jerry or George eats a poppy seed muffin and pulls up positive on a
Right.
on a drug test.
Yeah, and that's there's also I remember a Mythbusters episode where they put that to the test and found out that like eating a bunch of poppy cake because it has like more fat in it, it like holds the poppy whatever, you know, part of the poppy has that hallucinogenic or you know whatever you want to call it additive to it. Um, it was the one that was worse for passing drug tests or more so than like bagels and stuff. Did you ever watch that?
Probably. You know, really what this all reveals about you and me is that neither of us have done opium.
Yeah.
So I can't speak. I don't even know. Is it hallucinogenic?
I honestly don't. I think like in movies, which you cannot trust because movies will also like basically say that weed is hallucinogenic sometimes. But in movies, a lot of times it seems like it chills you out and maybe you get some sort of hallucinogenic.
Munchies.
I have no idea. Yeah. Is it just, is opium not, yeah, is opium just weed? I don't know.
You know, it's funny too, because like one of the things that was brought up in our Discord chat It Gets Weird Discord relatively recently is like the, that a lot of like stuff in the Bible was like the result of people like taking hallucinogenic drugs.
Basically
in
unintentionally
times.
consuming hallucinogens because of natural leaves and stuff that were used in various tinctures and everything. Yeah, that is there's a whole subset of like biblical scholar that is looked into that, and I've never read like super deep into it, but it's really interesting, the stuff I have read.
Probably an interesting topic. I wonder if we could get away with it on this show.
I don't know. You know, we'll see what we end up doing. Especially if there's someone who has developed some sort of new age version of Christianity from it, then we can probably figure it out.
I bet you there has been. But sorry, go ahead with
anyway.
Sodom and Gomorrah doing poppy seed whippets or whatever.
So back then the poppy product was known as the grapes of Gomorrah and to others as wormwood. And it was actually used as supposedly like as part of like a pain numbing agent because it cites that Jesus Christ was offered it on the cross. But so basically this posits Sodom and Gomorrah as effectively like a poppy producing like fucking vice den. Like it is. You know, there are all these people with sexual depravities and deviant proclivities, and this town was the inefficient drug dealing operation second only to the CIA, is how it calls it out on this research, which I thought was really interesting.
You know,
it's just taking shots at everything here.
Jesus, you know the reason Jesus actually refused the use of poppy when he was put on the cross is because he told them, I don't smoke mids. And what you brought me today are mids. And I need that primo stuff.
I was really, really kind of hoping that you weren't going to go for a straight edge, like Nailed to the X fucking reference there.
No.
Because that's you know, maybe it's in slightly off taste, but we'll go ahead and keep going.
Jesus was a high flyer who needed the good shit. And they merely brought him fucking scratch.
Okay. So yeah, Jesus only wanted the best opium. Oh my God. My brain still recoils from talking about that kind of stuff, even though I haven't really gone to church in about
I have no filter there.
Yeah. Okay. So this is when the cosmos comes back into play a little bit. So you know how, do you remember how Sodom and Gomorrah got struck down in the Bible?
Weren't they like doing something? Weren't they like too sexy or something?
There's a whole thing about this is one of the arguments I used to get into with my youth pastor and even my parents about like what the actual idea of Sodom and Gomorrah is, because it very much gets used as an anti-homosexual text,
right?
And that is only if you take it entirely ahistorically. And like, I'm not going to cape up for the Bible here, but anyone using Sodom and Gomorrah to denounce homosexuality doesn't quite understand the story, in my opinion. But that's neither here nor there. It's an entirely separate thing. But in this case, you had like Lot and Abram were two people that were in there. Lot's wife is the one that turns around and gets turned into a pillar of salt as the city burns, basically. And what this happened, like how this actually happens, is that it's thought that either Mars or Venus loomed close to Earth in this time, and due to the like interference of the electric poles and charges and plasma universe stuff, the electric universe stuff of these two planets, it created a massive interplanetary arcing bolt of plasma that vaporized Sodom and Gomorrah. And that was why when Lot's wife turned around and like was too close to it, she got basically vaporized as well.
Oh, wait. Okay, so are Sodom and Gomorrah places?
Yes.
Right.
They're town. They were like neighboring towns in the Bible in supposedly history. Yeah.
All right. Well, I might as well just say it. I thought Sodom and Gomorrah were people. And I kind of like my version better, that they were both so sexy. God was like, and he
that makes your comments make more sense. Yeah. Okay. No, Sodom and Gomorrah were very wicked places, and if you went there and lived there, you probably were wicked as well. So God smote them effectively in the Bible. And in reality,
it was just the planets.
In the electrical reality,
shooting a big laser.
It was literally Mars or Venus shooting a fucking plasma bolt at Sodom and Gomorrah, completely by happenstance or maybe there's some sort of. I still can't fully understand how much we're personifying the planets into actual like gods here.
Hard to say.
I think that's just basically how the priests are recording the events. They personify these planets, and the planets are actually just moving as planets move, and it's kind of this naturalistic thing that then just gets interpreted into mythology. So this had to have been just basically by happenstance.
It is honestly a lot funnier than God smiting the two towns that just like a planet light years away just like shot a big ass laser beam and evaporated them.
That's really kind of what is happening here. Sodom and Gomorrah got vaporized by a plasma bolt, which is like, honestly, there is such a good like. Remember the Matt Fraction book Odyssey?
Yeah,
it was like with Christian Ward doing this like wild ass like gender bent retelling of the Odyssey in a sci-fi way.
Yep.
You could do that with the Bible by using this interpretation, and it would be
pretty dope.
So fucking weird. And I would love it if like
I would love
you would get like James Stokoe on it or something, like someone who has a really like wild art style that can do the like massive weird cosmos stuff really justice. Anyway, yeah, that just came to mind. I am so weird, like I'm fascinated by these concepts of just this like these cataclysms on a galactic scale just somehow happening into our shared mythology here. Anyway, so now because of all of this stuff, there was this kind of without the poppy fields of Sodom and Gomorrah, there were kind of a problem in terms of commerce for the Blue Bloods. They had to kind of get some sort of control again, because the just like selling, opium
drug trade wasn't enough for them.
The drug trade kind of got fucked by God.
Silk Road got taken down.
Yeah, this is unto Silk Road being taken down. So, what they had to do was they started doing these rituals, and this is the beginning of a lot of the borderline like sex rites and sex magics of secret societies in this canon. And I don't mean sex magic in the way of like
Crowley.
like Crowley and stuff. I mean it in the like Eyes Wide Shut cabal kind of way.
Okay, well,
you know?
yeah, and like, to be fair, the Eyes Wide Shut version is like not too dissimilar to people who. This is not me talking about like there is a subset of like magic practitioners, quote unquote, who do engage in it that way. I don't think that's most people. But in my research, well, okay, let me say that again. According to a lot of conspiracy theorists, there are people who this is like, I'm picturing a lot of like what people think goes on at Bohemian Grove, for instance.
Yes, that is the vibe here. It's not the like the actual quote unquote occult. It is the spooky,
right?
The spooky like idea of the occult held by people that don't know what's going on.
And I have found this like kind of crossover between New Age stuff and Satanism, where they do end up. I'm trying to remember the name of the guy that I researched, because there was a guy that we covered on this show who, I want to say back in the 50s or 60s, did in fact do rituals like that, but they were maybe not, probably not as spooky, but it was akin to that, and was maybe what planted the seed of belief in those occult groups. But yeah, they're not like the quote unquote real deal, I guess.
Yeah. And so this is the beginning of the Saturn Death Cult. These rituals by the Blue Bloods and by the kind of warrior kings of the time, creating this way of consolidating power by ritualization of these like secret acts that supposedly keep the gods happy. It starts there, and then it degenerates over time into a more much more harmful and much more brutal, awful thing. And that's where you get into like the stuff that people think that the stuff that people really think that the New World Order does, the like stuff involving children and cannibalism and all that kind of stuff comes out of this, and it's kind of a degeneration of these initial rites and rituals that are established around this time.
That makes
so
sense.
We're going to keep going with this, but that's where we're at right now. We are starting to have the Saturn Death Cult as it came to be known, and using that as a way to keep and hold power in these kind of secret circles of blue bloods or noble people. Okay, so there are, and a lot of these sexual rites that were kind of created have metaphorical meanings. It's Saturn and Venus as man and wife, and Venus as Aphrodite, and Saturn as fucking Zeus. No, Zeus is Jupiter.
I'm forgetting as well.
Yeah. Anyway, so you're starting. They all have these kind of correlations to this mythology that they've been keeping track of it from the heavens over time. So it's like the stuff that we talked about last episode basically gets turned into sexual rites put forth by this Saturn Death Cult and practiced to consolidate power going forward. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
they're turning mythology into sexual role play effectively.
Nice. Okay. I like that.
Yeah. So, this creates all the rituals. This creates what they call in these books that I read what could be seen as the first applications of shadow government sponsored mind control programs that were designed to reduce once proud warrior kings to the role of sex puppets in an insane attempt to imbue a supposed elite class of people with the authority of Saturn as cosmic lord and creator. So basically trying to create god kings through these sexual rites that they can control.
Okay. And did I like misunderstand? How exactly do these rituals actually end up doing that?
Basically by it's like how people talk about Skull and Bones kind of controlling politics and everything. It's by by going through these rites and joining these secret societies, you can gain power and influence. And then also these people that are behind the scenes can then control you as you are the public secret face of these organizations.
So they're like,
it is.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it is entirely like, like we're really on to a borderline like Skull and Bones secret society running the world stuff. That is
Right.
what we're going into going forward.
And
here.
they're just inducting powerful people all over the place to get them in on this, so that they can control them behind the scenes, basically.
Yeah, basically talking about how like various presidents have been puppets of these behind the scenes shadowy groups that are then basically being controlled from behind the scenes. That's what we're dealing with here.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman in the name of the god Saturn.
Yeah, exactly. It's I actually don't know if I guess really everyone, supposedly the last non controlled president was JFK because he was going to expose some stuff and fuck with the Federal Reserve and everything.
JFK, huh?
Yeah, JFK was kind of the turning point in American politics, supposedly when the New World Order gained control of America, which is a thing that I see. Like, what's fun is that so many different versions of these kinds of conspiracies all focus on that point, and it's all for different reasons of things that JFK was going to do, and it all basically comes down to the fact that like JFK kind of was trying to do some different things and had different priorities than other people. So he's like this fucking turning point because he got murdered or assassinated, I guess, because he's a president.
Yeah, the assassination.
That makes him this like lightning rod of conspiracy theory.
The accidental conspiracy theory martyr, and for many. I do love the idea though that like anybody in the presidency can be one of these people, including the guy who was president for what, like, wasn't it like 3 days or something?
Yeah,
some really short. I can't remember
like
the
a
exact.
week.
Yeah, he was like
he got pneumonia because he wouldn't wear a coat during his induction.
But it could be literally anybody. Could be anybody.
Yeah.
I am not a crook who blasts thick ropes for Venus.
Oh God.
And anyways, those are the two presidential
that
quotes that I know.
All right. So then we have around this time, there's one group that doesn't quite fit into the mold of this like shadowy cabal. They instead saw these the Sodom and Gomorrah stuff and everything as the anger of a singular god and manifestation of the one true God's power and anger. And this became kind of a thorn in the side for this group trying to establish their power worldwide. And those people were the Israelites.
Right. Okay.
By creating a monotheistic god that was not based on the planets, he was this other thing. They were shirking the control of this Saturn Death Cult. And the next time Venus passed by is how all of the exodus of Israel out of Egypt happened. So the reason why the parting of the Red Seas happened, the plagues, all of the stuff that took place in the Exodus in the Bible was because Venus basically interfered with plasma.
What the fuck?
And the reason it was happening was because Venus was trying to settle into its now orbit, but passed too closely, and it allowed the Israelites to leave Egypt.
Why? Okay. It really is confusing, the whole, like, are the planets gods or not? Because, like, that kind of hinges on, like, if the planets are not gods and they're just, like, randomly and bizarrely intervening through, like, these like, celestial like paths that end up causing them to shoot plasma beams through space, like, which is wild in and of itself, then if they are gods, then what's the fucking point in like talking about them shooting plasma beams? The gods intervened. It's God intervened. It's all God intervened. That's like, whether or not you're looking at it from this like electrical universe theory bullshit perspective, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And they kind of eventually come into that, and that's how Christianity gets kind of subsumed into this. But it was, for a while, it was kind of a thorn in the paw of this whole shadowy organization, because these people were not really, they wouldn't kind of get into this whole Saturn rights thing, and that's RITE, not GH. Because they believed that it was all the will of a singular creator that was not Saturn. So they then created the whole religion of trying to interpret a singular message from these acts instead of seeing them as the works of a group of celestial gods. And that became a more direct conduit of meaning that was not held by these priests, these blue bloods that were controlling everything. So basically, by allowing a more direct congress with the creator in Judaism, or what is the foundations of Judaism, they were subverting the power structure of this death cult effectively. And the way, and if how I just phrased that clues you into where this is going, then you're getting a little ahead, but you're on the point. The way this all gets fixed is eventually by establishing Catholicism.
Oh, of course. My bad.
By putting in a rigid power structure between you and God that can then be controlled. So we're going to get there eventually, but that is kind of where we're headed.
Okay. Well, I should have known Catholicism would be the key to unlocking all of this. So that's my bad.
Yeah. So like there's stuff before that. There's stuff like we're going to go in. There'll be things in Rome that happen like as Rome establishes Christianity as its official religion, which happens not too long after all this stuff. Like we're kind of moving towards that time period. Once Jesus comes around, that's when that really starts. But yeah, they go through. There's a section on how Israelites then go, and the whole thing of the of Abraham and the stone tablets, and also the golden idol that they basically destroyed. That was a false god. That gets brought up. I don't want to go through all of this in depth, or else this will be a 3-parter.
But they didn't actually destroy the golden idol. They Jupiter shot a beam of energy that shattered it.
No, it actually is basically like a false idol. Like they went and they say it's in Babylon. I'm not sure if that's fully true with how everything went, but it was with Nebuchadnezzar, I guess. He had the kind of false idols, and this is when the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stuff happens. If you know about that, the burning, the men who survived going into a furnace. They don't really explain how that was because of the planets. They don't really explain that one, but it does, basically say that they shirk the God King status of Nebuchadnezzar, and they start to use the phrase "the illuminated ones" at this point, meaning basically those behind the scenes that are trying to control everything. And that's pretty good coding for where that will end up as the Illuminati, which is just not established yet, because that doesn't get established until Germany in the 40s, maybe 30s, something like that. The German Illuminati. But we're kind of going there. It's the illuminated ones of the Babylonian mystery schools that we're talking about at this point. But all of this stuff can be traced in a line if you believe in this theory. So this whole thing did leave, like, the Israelites leaving Babylonian areas and kind of shirking Nebuchadnezzar did lead to kind of the Saturn Death Cult stuff going underground for a while, where they basically had to hide for a while the Iron Age of Man began and Rome really took control. So now this is when they have to start operating more behind the scenes instead of being a little more flagrant with it. And this is where the early seeds of the full-on New World Order begin, which comes out of the Saturn Death Cult. So really, you can trace it back even further, but this is where that whole thing really starts. So they talk about, I guess at the time, Rome was called Saturnus, which they like to harp on because that's, Saturn and everything. But there's the whole thing about the Roman Colosseum and the blood sports that are that happened in there are now like the kind of ritualistic killings and take that place for a lot of these secret societies and these mystery schools. So that satiates the god's bloodthirst effectively, and the need for ritual. And over time, as the heavens start to right themselves even more and things stop getting get even more into where they are now, mankind continues to focus more and more on themselves and on money and on power as opposed to on gods. So effectively, in the Iron Age, we're in the age where the planets are set in their orbits effectively, barring any small kind of flare-ups that we'll have. And we're now in the age where mankind doesn't have the need for these ritualistic things for God because we are focused on ourselves.
Okay. It's okay. I mean, okay. I still don't fully follow the whole. I follow, but I don't get. Maybe it's going somewhere. I'll let you talk.
No, you go ahead. What's up?
Like just the whole idea that like not following the planetary movements and stuff is somehow bad for us. Like, it's just a weird through line in this that I'm not sure I understand the point of.
Yeah, that is a good thing to talk about because it's a thing that I don't have a full-on explicit answer to. The best thing that I can say is that it's more about our belief in those things gives the Saturn Death Cult more control, and also this whole mythology is centered around the Golden Age being like a utopic. Like everything was in harmony, everything worked well. And so the further we stray from that, the more things get bad. And it is a kind of spiritual, an unfulfilled spirituality that we have now that causes us to seek out money and power instead of this kind of golden age harmony kind of thing. So there's this kind of undercurrent of that in this, but also the Saturn Death Cult is kind of perverting this harmony into rituals for power, and that's those two things are kind of operating hand in hand as this continues moving on. If that makes any fucking sense.
It almost sounds like it's like trying to take like the whole like God is dead idea and like turn it into a comic book plot. Which, like, really, as far as I understand it, the whole God is dead quote is really just like, well, how does, like, humanity rationalize life? How do they live without, how do you live a secular life is really all that's about.
Yeah.
And it's just weird to take that and be like, well, it's about the planets not being worshipped and also, maybe I'm thinking like some weird thing about money and gold. I don't know. It's just weird.
The fact that all of this is based on parsing mythology very literally makes it so that like if you don't just look at this as mythological pillars, like the pillar of the Golden Age as this perfect thing that we want to return to. Why? Because we do. Versus this Iron Age is the age where we are selfish and flawed, and there's this insidious thing in the background controlling everything. Then there you have to look at this as like you said, like a comic book plot. Like it has to be these nebulous concepts just have to be taken at face value for any of this to make sense. Because there's no way for us as a society now to return to the time where Saturn was above our pole and the earth was purple, and there were like giant red plants everywhere.
Right.
And that was even pre the golden era. So the golden age is when we first started getting into like the sun's orbit and shit, and the cosmos was just in chaos. And I don't think that's a thing that rationally I want back, because it just caused us to get like flooded a lot and get like rocks thrown at us from space a lot and plasma bolts. But for some reason, that's the golden era we want.
I don't need Saturn to fucking shoot laser beams at me while I'm trying to play fucking Rainbow Six Siege. I'm busy here. I'm playing a video game. Like, I'm just saying, it's such a weird, like, and I still can't tell, like, whether this person's ultimate thing is like, comes from a religious place or not, you know? Like, if they, like, believe in some sort of Christian creator god, or if they think, it's so weird.
It is very strange. Like, I don't, from here on out, a lot of things are kind of linked to, you know how in the early on when we were talking about like, like Quetzalcoatl and Ouroboros and everything, and like with Venus, how it was like, oh, we're pulling from all these different mythologies. From here on out, it is only Christianity and explicitly things that would fit into the Western history.
Right. Okay.
So there is like decidedly this like Judeo-Christian bent to all of this stuff, and doesn't really talk anymore about things outside of that. Like once we get into the time when America has started, you know, because right now we're still in, you know, in the land of Rome. Like that's not American, but it does fit into kind of the idea of like the Western history, because people trace stuff back to there. But like, yeah, that's the best way I can say it. Is like, I don't know if this person is a devout Christian or just is using Christian mythology, because that's where all of the Saturn Death Cult stuff kind of ties into like Catholicism and stuff going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what to do with that, but that is where we're headed.
Gotcha.
All right. So, all of the stuff is, you know, the rituals are getting more and more perverse and more corrupted beyond their initial point. And these people are in the shadows with the Saturn Death Cult, trying to consolidate power. Meanwhile, in Rome is kind of starting to fall apart money-wise, because basically they overstretched themselves, like the actual fall of the Roman Empire. Like they overstretched themselves, couldn't keep up all of this stuff, and Rome kind of fell apart. And also Jesus happened, and he started this kind of subset of what was originally a the Jewish faith and into Christianity. So all of these things are happening, and his supporters are saying the love of money is the root of all evil, which is very against what the Saturn Death Cult wants you to believe, because they're all about money and power. So that is antithetical to all their things. So there is just this kind of dissension happening because of Jesus, and we're coming to a head basically as Rome is kind of starting to fall apart.
Right.
And this is when I have not really looked into this before. The Nicolaitans, I don't really know if I looked into this just very briefly because they came into this. But it's an order of priests that effectively would speak on God's behalf for money. So it's basically a commodification of priesthood. And they, in this thing, they basically were a perversion of the teachers of Melchizedek. If you've ever heard of the Order of Melchizedek,
No.
That is an early Christian offshoot sect. I don't know a whole lot about it other than like looking into it a bit because of a band that I ran sound for a couple times in college, called Spirits and the Melchizedek Children, that were really good. They're pretty great. Like a psych rock band kind of thing. But they they basically get co-opted by the Nicolaitans, who start to basically bring in marketing and commerce into Christianity and try to set up what their idea of Jesus, like basically co-opt the real Jesus into a marketing image. And part of this is coming up with like what the name that we know. They come up with the name of Jesus as a reference to basically his actual name, Yeshua. And here it is. So it's Yah, which means Lord or God in this context, and then Zeus, as in, Zeus of Greek mythology and of the cosmos. And so Yah Zeus becomes Jesus or Lord Zeus, and that is a thing that they can then tie into these blood rituals and this kind of the Saturn Death Cult kind of things that we're talking about. And this is all happening around the time of Constantine. And that's when Constantine is the person that establishes Christianity as Rome's official state religion. And so the version of Christianity that is established here is already tainted by the Nicolaitans. And that is effectively like where the seeds of the Pope and the Roman Catholic Church come in.
Okay. So the Pope has entered the scene.
Yes. Basically, I don't know how this is probably drastically oversimplified, but one of Constantine's successors basically wards off Attila the Hun, and Christianity then established the Pope in the subsequent times after that, and that is when the traditional idea of Rome fell, but the Roman Catholic Church was established.
Right. Okay.
And the newly formed Holy Roman Empire took its place.
Okay. So Pope's on the scene. I like that.
Yeah. And this is when you start to see the church as a force of war and stuff with the Crusades,
yes,
which are blood rituals.
Oh.
And mass blood sacrifices. So you get the various crusades across everywhere else across that whole area to seize money, riches, and do blood sacrifices effectively.
Okay, so that's I didn't know that about the Crusades.
Yeah, that's what they were for.
You learn something new. That's literally the plot. That's literally a big part of the plot of Fullmetal Alchemist. So maybe this guy's like an anime freak. Because yeah.
Well, it's also like this is a thing because the Knights Templar and stuff happen around this time, and so like all of this stuff gets thrown into like secretive religion,
of course,
and so you get things like the Da Vinci Code that factor this stuff into their history. This like the Crusades being some sort of sacrifice of like having some sort of like occult, spooky purpose is a thing in a lot of Christianity-based conspiracy theories, where Christianity is like kind of tied into the New World Order. So yeah, that he could be an anime nerd, or he could just be into like New World Order by way of the Roman Catholic Church,
right,
kind of stuff as well.
Niall, you see those twin brothers say Da Vinci?
I did. They're actually did you know they're wrestlers?
I did. I just wanted to briefly mention them and have a good laugh about the Da Vinci brothers.
Varos twins?
Yes, something
Varos,
like that.
I think. They're a tag team that their bit is because they're identical twins. When the ref's not looking, they'll swap out. And they're actually kind of cool. I've watched some highlight reels of them because I found out that they were wrestlers. And not just a meme.
What I want to know is how the Da Vinci brothers, that's what I call them, by the way, how did they factor into the Saturn Death Cult? Maybe we'll unlock that at the end.
Yeah, maybe. I think that'll be in the postscript of all of this. So while the Crusades were happening, they were also dealing in a slave trade. and drug trade and all that kind of stuff, where they were sacking various parts of Asia for its riches, its drugs, its people, all of that kind of thing. And this is where the even more power is accumulated into this this kind of Illuminated Ones, Mystery School, Saturn Death Cult conglomerate thing. And on this is also when the Knights Templars come around, and that is a further kind of arm of this whole thing, and they take on even more of the Crusades, the Albigensian Crusades, basically. And from there on out, things just keep getting more and more just the rites and the rituals and the secretive acts of just horror, really, by the Saturn Death Cult continue to get worse and worse as they get more powerful and have more control. And that is when we kind of get into the establishment of the full-on like New World Order.
Okay.
Is where this turns into this secret shadow government thing trying to gain control of the whole world.
I'm guessing you could look at most like historical moments full of bloodshed as being some ritual, whatever, for the death cult.
Oh, and this does. Like, I'm pretty sure it talks about like World War I eventually. Like, this history kind of stops around World War II, because oddly enough, the Nazis were actually like kind of a problem for these people, which we'll get to in just a couple minutes. I'm going to try to go through this pretty quickly because we have to get from the Holy Roman Empire to World War II in the next like 20 minutes.
Okay.
So I'm going to do my best here. All right, so we're continuing to kind of move along. They're accumulating power through the fall of the Holy Roman Empire, but they continue kind of working through the Catholic Church and through kind of gaining power in the Dark Ages. And over time, this happens, and you see the rise of the next kind of thing that is used for world domination, known as the Red Shield. Now, the Red Shield is somewhat hard to fully explain. It's effectively a consortium of like banking, of like European banking families, in the starting in like the 1700s and fully established kind of by the end of the 1700s. So they become the banking capital of the British Empire. Along with so controlling a lot of the large-scale money in Europe.
Okay.
And this is happening when we're starting to send people over to America, which is when the Red Shield comes up to its kind of first problem.
Okay.
So basically the Red Shield sets up money, and you know about how like in Britain they used to have like debtors' prisons and stuff?
Yeah. Been there.
So that they do all of those things. They are basically having a debt-based slavery system is how it's described here, where if you are in debt, you have to work to pay it off. And so by creating that amount of debt, they can further control the populace while accumulating wealth for themselves. So the Red Shield are effectively this like group that is tied to the Saturn Death Cults, but is a banking consortium in Europe that runs these debtor prisons and controls people. There's a French wing of it as well, so you get it all across most of like Europe at this time. And when America starts to be a thing, when it's just the colonies, they want to kind of extend their debt-based system over to America. And America is this like it kind of started because of this taxation without representation idea that we said fuck you to, and tried to secede from Britain, and then tried to establish a banking system that was not based on debt slavery or debt kind of debt-based work.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't sit very kindly with the Red Shield and the those behind the scenes, the Illuminated Ones. So this at the same time, or around the same time, we also had kind of a war with the British and the Prussian at Waterloo, and they were accumulating more and more kind of power through that, because wars are good for, as we know, but with like everything, wars are really good for commerce.
Right.
So when we have that war and also the war in the US, you have a lot of time for and places for this Red Shield to amass more power. Now, we were on our way to being free from this system until the Federal Reserve Bank was established. Now, this is, we skipped years here because I have to go very quickly. But the Federal Reserve is the thing that is like the biggest thing when it comes to New World Order conspiracies in America. It is like, we talked about this in the Titanic episode. We talked about this in a couple other episodes. The Federal Reserve is a way to get us off of any sort of gold standard or like wealth system that is calculable and onto a debt-based system where everything is just kind of numbers thrown around and there's no innate value to the dollar. It's all just like made up effectively. Right?
Right. Yeah.
So that's a real thing.
Yes.
But this is where the Red Shield and the Saturn Death Cult get some control back into America. So now they are on our shores, working behind the scenes here too. Then the Industrial Revolution kind of really builds things again. They get really into oil when that becomes a big thing in terms of energy production. Yeah. They get kind of try to go for a monopoly over the world's energy needs, and that also gets them further into America because we had a lot of oil production at the time, along with other places across the world. And you get people such as the Rockefellers and Andrew Carnegie, who are now in the kind of order of the Illuminated Ones. And we also see the kind of the drug stuff start up again as well. So now we have basically oil, drugs, and also like weapons being a lot of the main sources of income and power for the mystery Babylon societies, the Saturn Death Cult and its various other similar organizations. And this is how they basically create their money and their power across the world now. They're now a global organization that has power everywhere and is going for ultimate power everywhere.
Okay. I mean, it sounds like a familiar real phenomenon, but a little fantastical, but yeah.
Yeah. The next thing that I wanted to hit is the fact that they actually basically seeded the 19th century version of Luciferianism and Satanism as a thinly veiled version of a lot of their sexual rites, as effectively a false flag to like make those things seem evil to the general populace, so they're then more controlled by those behind the scenes that amass the power. So it's effectively like how they discredited these rites and these sexual magics from in the larger populace, so that they could have that power and stuff for themselves.
But weren't they controlling people by then inducting them into that idea? So wouldn't it make more sense to be like, oh, everybody, ritual sacrifice and sex is really cool and good. Everybody do it. Haha, now we control you. I don't know.
But that was to set up like mind-controlled leaders. So that is to like get your elite class and specific people to run things.
Okay.
You need a way. We're now dealing on a global scale where you're trying to control billions of people, and you don't want them to have these ways of getting power.
Okay. Well, fair enough.
Yeah. They also claimed that the idea of the serial killer was also kind of started by these people and kind of put into society as like another way to scare people off of finding the power of like blood rights and stuff. And yeah, so this is kind of where we really start to get the control over America with the Federal Reserve. Andrew Jackson is very close to basically he rescinded the Federal Reserve Bank in 1832, and was trying to set up a U.S. Reserve as opposed to the Federal Reserve that is a little more, separate, so that we would have control over it a bit more. And Jackson was killed.
Right.
And then we also had Abraham Lincoln, who issued debt-free greenbacks during the Civil War.
Okay.
Was also killed.
Right. Yeah, I'm following.
And then basically every time someone has tried to, get out of this kind of and establish some sort of debt-free money system, you get killed.
Yeah.
Up all the way up until I think JFK as well.
Okay.
So, this is kind of just the way it goes for most of that time period, and up until the point where we have World War II. And World War II is kind of a problem because now we have the New World Order kind of fully established, and so this is kind of hard to explain.
None of the other stuff has been hard to explain before, so I think I can handle it.
Yeah. So at the time, the behind the scenes people were funding both the Marxist experiment in Russia,
okay,
and also the basically funding the Socialist Party in Germany and Hitler, like the National Socialistic Party, the Nazis.
Sure, why not?
But Adolf Hitler made the decision that Germany would no longer participate in the accepted central banking model, and that created a problem for the Red State because Germany was a power at the time, and in that degree, I guess they were recovering from World War I, but they were enough of a power that they had to basically be squashed. So the original plan was to build up communist Russia and play it off against a Nazi Germany to basically make a further war that would cause more carnage, more blood ritual, and create the kind of full-on New World Order. But then Hitler gained power and tried to establish a debt-free system outside of the central banking system that the mystery schools wanted. And this was now hearkening back to the whole American Revolution problem that they had to squash, a while before that. And this was effectively where they had to then deal with Hitler.
Okay.
This is a part that goes off into a thing. So I'm just going to read a little bit here because I don't know. It's hard to parse this into everything else that we're talking about. There's a person named Martin Bormann who was Hitler's private secretary and someone who was described by, I was surprised to see this name pop up, Richard C. Hoagland as Dick Cheney, but without the warmth and charm.
What? Wait. This assumes some things, but I'll let you go ahead.
Yes. So Bormann laid out the foundation for an extra-national Fourth Reich to rise out of the ashes of the Third Reich. It would take place in South America, where Nazi scientists could continue their research and development into a bevy of exotic weapons and technologies, including possible anti-gravity flying craft.
God.
We've talked about that forever ago in a couple episodes. While these would serve as an adequate deterrent against continued attack from the wartime allies, Martin Bormann had, more importantly, also established the long-term financial viability of the new Reich through the systematic plundering of Europe's largest corporations and the reinvestment of that wealth into the coffers of the Anglo-American banking elite, i.e. the Red Shield. So Martin Bormann basically, post-Hitler, set up the continued pressing on of the Fourth Reich, but by tying them into the Red Shield now. So they circumvented the problem by getting rid of Hitler, letting his ruthless secretary take control of the future of the Nazis, and funding it effectively.
Fuck? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. This was at the time, a mutually beneficial arrangement. But at one point, they were going to have to deal with this whole thing because the Nazis were going to be capable of backing up any of their kind of threats against the Red Shield because of all the technology they were trying to work on in South America. And so this is where everything kind of falls apart for them, and the Nazis get just basically fucked over at the end of World War II. And ex-Nazi scientists go to the U.S. Operation Paperclip happens, and the Nazis now control parts of the NASA organization, which is a thing I've talked about on a bonus show about Hoagland's book on a show that I do there. So if you want to hear more about the warring factions of NASA, subscribe to the Patreon at the $5 tier. So this started stuff about the secret space program and all these things through these Nazi scientists. And we now have dealt with the Nazi problem, and they're kind of focused into the American scientific community through NASA, where we have control by the Red Shield and the Mystery Schools of Babylon. Make sense?
Oh my God. I mean, I get where we are, but holy shit.
Yeah. So yeah, this is kind of where we're going to end for a while, other than we do get the, that fun end game for everything of depopulation. Yeah, we've talked about that in another episode where the New World Order has a plan to depopulate the Earth. And that is the supposed plan for this whole version of things as well. I just had to wrap it. We just had to get to that point. And this is all to effectively create a better world for the elite by fucking over everybody else. But they have to just kind of figure out the best blood ritual, sacrifice ritual tradition to bring about the new Saturnian golden age through a depopulation sacrifice.
Fuck. This is... Yeah. Okay. This shit is like... It's like the Andy Parrow story, except if you're just doing it entirely about broad conspiracy. Like, it's so detailed and tied into so much shit. That's just absurd.
Yeah, it's very hard to like put all this stuff together because it literally starts at effectively when Earth wasn't even in the solar system and ties it all up through the point where at least to World War II, and then also has the coda of the depopulation agenda.
It's fucking ridiculous.
And there's also a whole epilogue thing of things that I didn't even go into. This is like, I was worried this was going to be a 3-parter, and it very well could have been. I had to go a little more quickly through this stuff and go broad strokes on some of it. So there's even more to get into here if you like this sort of like tying together history into the foundations of the New World Order kind of stuff. You can pick up, I think most of this is in the book Saturn Death Cult by Troy D. McLaughlin. But yeah, that is the Saturn Death Cult and the Saturn myth in, I don't know, about a little over 2 hours.
When was this book published?
Oh, I want to say it was somewhat in like, because the Velikovsky stuff was in the 70s, and that was then interpreted through various other people. And you got the Purple Dawn of Creation stuff through a couple other more scientific based people. I want to say that it's probably originally was maybe in the 90s and then became an ebook as well. So it's somewhere in there. I don't remember the exact date. But this theory is relatively modern, for conspiracy theory, at least the more, New World Order conspiracy side of things, as opposed to the Electric Universe side of things, which was, like I said, in the 70s.
Jesus, my God, I am like exhausted.
Yeah. I kept going forward through this whole thing was in like chapters, And I was like, okay, we got to be ending. Oh, okay. So now we're going into, now we're on Earth. Oh, okay. Now we're the Tower. Okay. Tower of Babel. Okay. Oh, we're now in Rome. Like, it was just, it was this fucking wild thing where I just kept clicking next and being like, this has to end sometime.
My God, this is maybe one of my favorite, broadly speaking, conspiracy stories we've ever done. This is so like, and the fact that it all hinges on the universe being electric is fucking out of control, man.
Yeah, and this is just like scratching the surface. There's so much more detail to it if you want to get into it, but like this is as broad strokes as I could make it and fit it in without turning this into a whole like mini series.
Jesus.
Yeah. So yeah, this is that's my attempt at the Saturn Death Cult and Saturn Myth episodes. Yeah, so I guess the Federal Reserve is the enemy, and anyone that goes against it gets assassinated. I guess that's basically where we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Let's go ahead, and if you don't have anything else you want to say, let's move on to a big question.
I'm in, but I can't think of a big answer for such a big fucking problem, man.
I straight up had to, I came up with like 4 different big questions for these 2 episodes because I didn't know which way we were going to go and exactly where it would end. So I have a couple to pick from. So I'm going to go ahead and go with, okay, so let's go with this one. If we look at more recent mythologies and creatures, the way that ancient cultures did with Ouroboros or Quetzalcoatl, like that was the birth of Venus. What would something I picked like Cthulhu or some other modern cosmic kind of being that how would you represent that in the cosmos?
Well,
this is one of the more high concept things I've ever tried to ask on this show, but it felt fitting for this fucking wild ass
You're dipping into my playbook a little bit here. Well,
I have an alternate if you'd rather.
No, I love it. I think the new mythology we're going to find however many decades down the road, provided humanity's still around at that point, is, let's be honest with ourselves. It's going to be internet memes, right?
Okay.
And I'm thinking that the thing that came right to my mind is the somber, forgotten IKEA monkey.
Oh my God. Okay.
And I think that the IKEA monkey, his like the origin story there is like when Pluto got banished from the planets. That's the kind of birth story for the IKEA monkey, who is now long forgotten, had its beautiful moment to shine in our history, and now is maybe dead, probably dead.
It's probably a good shot at being dead.
I don't know what kind of monkey it is and like how long that particular kind of monkey lives, but I also assume that maybe the IKEA monkey had a pretty like dangerous lifestyle where they would end up in an IKEA dressed so nicely. I'm thinking we could relate the kind of banishing of Pluto from the planetary canon to the IKEA monkey.
Okay, now I have to try to answer my own goddamn question, which this is one of the only ones I didn't create an answer for ahead of time, for some fucking reason. So, I think that if you want to look, I think that like, so Halley's Comet comes around every however many years, right?
Right.
I don't remember how many years it is, but I think that is basically every time the Halley's Comet goes around the Earth and it's seen in the night sky, you witness the birth of the next great comedy god, such as like Adam Sandler, or and I don't know who's current.
Just Adam Sandler, I think.
Yeah, I guess you really only need one at a time. I think Adam Sandler was born on the day of a Halley's Comet. I'm not going to look it up. Don't even tell me that I'm wrong. And so the next time hopefully the next time Halley's Comet comes around, we'll witness the birth of the next great comedic star who will give us laughs for ages to come. I think that we get the bright shining star of comedy every time Halley's Comet goes across.
I mean, look, you just described the plot of Uncut Gems too. You know, his character in Uncut Gems is going to find Halley's Comet finally crashes to Earth, and Howard, I'm Howard, and I have Halley's Comet. I love this. I'm going to bet on this. And people are going to be like, it's a stupid fucking bet, Howard, and he's going to be like, I disagree.
There you go. Oh man. I don't know, Eclipse. There's probably also a joke of Eclipse. Every time we get an Eclipse, we get a new Spider-Man reboot. I don't fucking know. But I'll go ahead and end it on that because that's about what this big question deserves. Do you have anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this up?
I have one statement, and that's I want to apologize for laughing at my own shitty Adam Sandler impression. That's all I have to say.
I don't know. I don't think you really need to feel bad about that. You have to find joy in your life somewhere. It might as well be laughing at your own impressions. All right. Well, this has been the Saturn myth in its, I don't know, somewhat of its own entirety. So thank you all for listening. Thank you for spreading the word of It Gets Weird. Keep spreading the word in 2021. Let's keep growing. So if you want to find more of this podcast or find some links to share it with your friends, you can go on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/ItGetsWeirdPodcast.
And we're on all your favorite podcatchers, whether that's Stitcher, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, really anywhere you look for podcasts, look up It Gets Weird, and we're probably there.
ItGetsWeirdPodcast@gmail.com. Look, big things are coming in 2021. We're definitely in 2021 by the time people hear this. Now that I realize that, but I can say that now that 2021's here, are we having more episodes? Yeah, you might email us about it, ask us about it, because we are probably.
The big things coming in 2021 are more episodes of this show. Okay.
Well, and the other big thing coming in 2021, it could maybe be email related. It might not be.
Remember that bit from last episode where we just spring things on each other? I think that's kind of what we're going through here.
No. Email us at itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. Anything you want at any time.
Yeah.
Also patreon.com/itgetsweird. Look, we got bonus content. All kinds of it. $2 tier and a $5 tier. We even have a $1 tier tip where you don't get anything. You just say, hey, I like your show. Thanks. Here's $1. But at the $2 tier and $5 tier, you get bonus content. And if you donate at either of those tiers, you get access to our secret Illuminati Discord, which, we talk about great conspiracy stuff, cryptid stuff, UFO stuff all the time. So please come check it out. And if you want to check it out, you gotta hook us up with that moolah. But if you can't pay for, if it's not in your, if you can't afford it, we understand. It's all good. We love you nonetheless. And, instead, maybe you could just tell your friends, tell your family, check out It Gets Weird, and absolutely tell your congressman. That is so vital to include all your emails and letters and calls to your congressman. Whatever, issue you may be contacting them for, them voting on something, and you're wanting to get at them about that. But don't forget, you got to also be also check out It Gets Weird.
Yeah, if you just want to play episodes of It Gets Weird over the phone to your congressman's voicemail,
that works too.
That's totally valid. Go ahead and do that. So thank you all for listening over the last year and into the new year. We really appreciate it, and we've gotten to grow even more this year in a way that we continue to be surprised by. So thank you all very much. I've been Niall.
And I'm Kyle, signing out.
Peace.